Hello guys, welcome back. Now today, I'm going to be talking about the Tampa Bay Lightning this season and if they're the best team of all time. Now the Lightning just hit 50 wins so far this season through 66 games played, so how did they really assemble this team to play this well, and are they the best team in the NHL's existence? Watch till the end to find out. Now, the Tampa Bay Lightning are putting together a magical kind of season, not just being the best team in the league right now, but being on pace to be one of the best teams in the NHL's existence. Now, Tampa Bay, as I'm recording this, has 50 wins on the season for 104 points. Obviously, the most points in the league. Obviously, the best record in the league. But the last team to get 50 wins in a season for the first 66 games was the 1996 Detroit Red Wings, which were infamously one of the best teams in the NHL's history. Now that 1996 Detroit Red Wings team actually has the most wins in NHL history with 62 back in 1996. But the Tampa Bay Lightning are an amazing company having the same amount of wins as Detroit did back that year with 66 games played. And that's just amazing to see. For the Tampa Bay Lightning, I mean, for any team in the last 20 years, we haven't seen that happen. But the Tampa Bay Lightning are the closest to the greatness that the Detroit Red Wings came to that season. But that season was just astounding for the Detroit Red Wings. That was just a regular season that they were just dominant. Nobody could really stop them. And the same thing kind of goes to the Tampa Bay Lightning this season. Now, the team with the most points in NHL history is the Montreal Canadiens, the team back in 1977. That team had 132 points in a season. That is the most in NHL history. I'm pretty sure the Detroit Red Wings were 131 points, so it was close, but those two teams are pretty much the best teams besides the Edmonton Oilers and their dynasty in the 80s. But when we look back to 1977 and look to today in 2019, the league is in a much stronger place than it was pretty much 42 years ago. The Tampa Bay Lightning don't have some of these expansion teams to beat up upon like the Montreal Canadiens had back then. But when it comes to the overall 31 teams, most teams are in a much better spot right now. There's a lot of great financial aid going with the NHL. A lot of teams aren't struggling like they did back 42 years ago, and overall it's a much better league than it was 42 years ago. So the Tampa Bay Lightning have that kind of disadvantage where it's a much more even playing field. Well, the Tampa Bay Lightning have 16 games remaining. Let's just say that they win all of those games. A 16-game winning streak, perhaps. Then they would have 136 points on the season, which would obviously make them the best team in NHL history. I don't think anybody could doubt it at that point. But if the Tampa Bay Lightning were to win maybe one or maybe win 3 games, then lose 1, that would make it very, very interesting and could make it very, very close. But let's just say Tampa goes on a 12-4-0 run to end off the season, which how Tampa Bay is playing the last couple of weeks is pretty reasonable for them. But let's just say they go on that run. That would mean that they actually tie Detroit for the most wins in NHL history, or at least the most wins in a regular season. And that would be just insane. Absolutely ludicrous for a team like the Tampa Bay Lightning, even though they are a pretty stacked team. But when it comes to overall points, that would put them at 124 or 128, which would mean that they're just a few points shy of that NHL record, but still amazing nonetheless. Let's say Tampa maybe goes on a little bit of a cold streak, goes 8-8-0 in their next 16 games. That would still put them at 120 points, which would be only the 5th time that the team has done that since the Montreal Canadiens season back in 1977. So they will be an absolutely elite company, and the Tampa Bay Lightning are an amazing team, and if any team is going to do it, the Tampa Bay Lightning are. We haven't seen a lot of President's Trophy winners get over that 120 mark. The closest I think last time was the 2006 Detroit Red Wings, then when they had 124 points, but since then it's been a pretty wide open gap. The team's been a lot closer when it comes to points, but the Tampa Bay Lightning are running away with the President's Trophy right now, and if any team is going to get that 120 mark, it's going to be Tampa Bay. The Tampa Bay Lightning have been so dominant that we've seen so much consistency in the winning for them. When it comes to the whole season, we haven't really seen a huge streak of cold streaks for them. We haven't seen this huge month and a half or something, this huge couple of weeks where they're just a bad team somehow and they go on this huge cold streak. We've seen that happen with other President's Trophy winners in the past, teams like Washington in the past. It's happened quite a bit. But with the Tampa Bay Lightning this season, they've only lost 12 games in regulation, which is just insane when it comes to NHL standards, and what they're on pace to be is simply amazing. We haven't really seen them go on this huge sustained losing streak for a while, and we've had a couple of times where in the last 10 games they haven't been amazing, but they've still been decent. But when it comes to the Tampa Bay Lightning, they've just been so consistently good, which is one of the most impressive parts about this season. But Tampa is dominant in every facet, in every position, in every area. They will outsmart you, outplay you, outskill you, outdefend you, outmanage you. Whatever it takes to win, the Tampa Bay Lightning will dominate that area and will expose every weakness on every single team. And even when they might lose, they'll go out the next game and play a dominant game right back again and get on another roll, win another 7 games, and make it look easy right again. But with the Tampa Bay Lightning, even if they might lose a game here or there, even if they might lose 2 games in a stretch, they'll come back in next week and win 5 straight. That's just how good they are. That's just how good of a team they are, and they're proving why they're the best team in NHL right now, at least regular season-wise. And that's scary for what they might become in the playoffs, but right now they're showing everyone why they're the team to beat. And a lot of that has to do with the main guy on Tampa, Nikita Kucherov, and the absolutely electric season that he's been having so far. In 66 games, he's had 31 goals, 75 assists, and 106 points, which we haven't seen that kind of pace since guys like Lemieux and Yager back in the day with the Pittsburgh Penguins. It's absolutely insane what he's been able to do this season, how he's been able to perform, and he keeps putting up points. He hasn't slowed down whatsoever. In the last couple of months, he's been the best player. In the last this February, he was named the best NHL player, or at least the player of the month, and it just shows how consistent he's been offensively, how good he's been, and while he has great teammates, obviously, like guys like Brayden Point, Steven Stamkos, it just proves how good of a player he actually is. And just running down the list of the Tampa Bay Lightning players so far, Brayden Point has proved himself as an elite player, one of my favorite players in the NHL. Steven Stamkos has been amazing offensively paired with Nikita Kucherov. You've got Victor Hedman, who is always amazing, won the Norris Trophy last year. Tyler Johnson, who's kind of come back to form a little bit, at least offensively. You got Yanni Gourde, who has just been fantastic in the last couple of months. JT Miller, who has been very solid since being acquired from the New York Rangers last year, especially this season. You got a guy like Alex Killorn, who has returned to form at least offensively. Always been a pretty solid defensive player. Ryan McDonough, who has been amazing assist-wise and has really had a very great season. Anthony Chiarelli, who has been one of the most impressive rookies so far this season, really driving that third and second line especially. Andre Palat, who's been okay, hasn't been the greatest. You got Mikhail Sergachev, who's had a little bit of an off year, but still a very good all-around player. And there's a lot more on this team that I could go down the list of, but that just shows how much depth Tampa has, and just the top 15 players are all players to be scared about. Now, when it comes to the cap era in the NHL, I don't think you can make a case for any other team to be better than the Tampa Bay Lightning are right now. They've just been so dominant, and when it comes to cap teams, you really can't assemble a better team than them. Well, yes, you could get rid of some guys like maybe a Ryan Callahan, maybe like a Dan Girardi. You could upgrade in those positions, but when it comes to the cap era, no team is exactly perfect, but the Tampa Bay Lightning are as close to that as I think we've seen in a long, long time. And while obviously the Stanley Cup playoffs are the biggest challenge for the Tampa Bay Lightning, at least in the past, they do have that one Stanley Cup back in 2004, but when it comes to the dominant teams that they've had in the last couple of years, really the playoffs have been the biggest problem, losing to the Washington Capitals in the Eastern Conference Final, losing to the Chicago Blackhawks in the Stanley Cup Final. They've had some great teams in the past, but have never been able to get up over the hump. But this Tampa Bay Lightning team is just too good to not do that. We kind of said the same thing last year, but this team has been so dominant that it might finally be their year. But the goaltending for me, I think, will be the biggest wild card and will tell the tale of how well they do in the playoffs. When it comes to Vasilevsky, I have good faith in him for actually going to be able to get it done. But in the Eastern Conference Final, he wasn't that great. But if they can get the goaltending sorted out and if they can do that in the playoffs, that team is pretty much unstoppable, as the offense and the defense is pretty much as good as you could possibly want it. Now, there's been some fantastic teams in the past. When we look at the Oilers dynasty, when we look at the Flyers dynasty, when we look at the Montreal Canadiens dynasty, and even the Detroit Red Wings dynasty, there's been some amazing, fantastic teams in the past that have dominated the regular season, dominated the NHL playoffs, and just been a fantastic team overall. But what the Tampa Bay Lightning are doing is something that we haven't seen before. With those dynasties, most of them were not in the cap era. Most of them did not have that challenge of fitting all these players in. And for the Tampa Bay Lightning, they're not a hockey market. Even if they didn't have the salary cap, they probably wouldn't have that much money to spend anyways. But what the Tampa Bay Lightning are doing with this salary cap, how they're able to manage everything so perfectly, signing guys for so little, so above or below what they're actually worth, has just been crazy over the last couple of years. And while most of it has been done by Steve Yzerman, it shows how good of a franchise Tampa Bay Lightning are for being able to assemble this type of team, having a guy like Steve Yzerman leave, but still having so much dominance in their belt. So for me personally, I'm going to say the 1996 Detroit Red Wings are the best team on paper when it comes to NHL history. But when it comes to the best team overall, counting salary cap, counting all the difficulties with 30 other NHL teams, soon to be 31 other NHL teams, when it comes to the difficulty of making an NHL team in today's NHL, I feel like for the Tampa Bay Lightning, what they're doing right now, while they do have 16 games left to play, how they are playing right now, and how dominant they are right now, this team right now, the Tampa Bay Lightning, are the best team in NHL history. While I know it is pretty hasty to say that, they haven't even played a playoff game right now, I still think while they have games to go, right now, 66 games in, they are the best in NHL history, and I will stand by that opinion. But how the Tampa Bay Lightning have been so good in the last few years, but still have been able to develop and progress players like no other team before, is just kind of reminds me of the Detroit Red Wings, and back how they had that huge playoff streak, but we're still able to find late round gems, you know, third round gems like the Tampa Bay Lightning, Steve Yzerman coming to that franchise and pretty much doing what the Detroit Red Wings did a few years ago, and doing that in today's era, doing it in today's NHL. But the Tampa Bay Lightning getting guys like Braden Point in the third round is something that we don't see ever in today's NHL. We don't see that kind of late round steal that becomes that elite top tier player. But the Tampa Bay Lightning are doing that, and that's what's fueling their team into being one of the best of all time, and in my personal opinion, the best of all time. And I already know this is going to be a super unpopular opinion with a lot of Detroit Red Wings fans, a lot of Montreal Canadiens fans, and even some Edmonton Oilers fans, and hey, even some NHL fans in general. But I feel like for the Tampa Bay Lightning, what they've been able to assemble and what they've been able to do, it does beat out the Detroit Red Wings, it does beat out the Montreal Canadiens in the past, and it beats out the Edmonton Oilers as my personal best team of all time. But of course, with this video, I want to hear your guys' thoughts down in the comments down below. So let me know, what do you think about my opinion of me thinking the Tampa Bay Lightning are the best team of all time? Let me know what your opinion is as well. Do you think the Tampa Bay Lightning this year are the best team of all time? Or would you go with maybe the 1996 Detroit Red Wings, or maybe Montreal Canadiens, or Edmonton Oilers? But if you guys want some more Grav videos just like this one, you can click on this card right here to watch my video about Jesperi Kotkaniemi and why I was so wrong about him. But that is going for today, guys. If you guys didn't enjoy, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you haven't already. Again, comment down below your thoughts on this video, and if you think the Tampa Bay Lightning are the best team in NHL history. And I'll see you guys in the next video or stream. Goodbye.